Good morning, everybody. My name's Marie Hardeman. I'm the Customer Director at the Rural Payments Agency, and I'd like to introduce Norma Boyes, who works in our Customer Service Centre on our helpline. Morning, Norma.
Morning.
Norma's also a farmer. Norma, would you just tell us a little bit about your farm, please?
I mean, over the years, we've done everything. We had a dairy, we milked cattle, we milked cows and then bottled the milk and went out round on a milk round, and we did a vegetable car. But things have changed. We're not a massive farm, so we've downscaled. So now we're mainly sheep. We breed some for the fat market and some for pedigree animals for breeding sheep. So it's lambing time now, so we're quite busy.
Yes. And whereabouts are you, Norma? Where's your farm?
We farm at Howgate. It's not a hill farm as such. It's classed as a lowland farm.
Yeah, and you're in Cumbria, aren't you?
We're in Cumbria, yes.
Wonderful. And how long have you been farming for, Norma?
I've always farmed. I'm 74 and I've never known anything else. Both my great-grandparents, my parents, on both sides of the family have always farmed. So I've never done anything other than farming. I've grown up with it. Yeah.
Brilliant. And you work with us at the Rural Payments Agency. How long have you worked alongside farming?
I've always worked as well. Since I was 16, I was articled with a firm of chartered accountants. I got £5 a week. In those days, you were told that you should be grateful that they'd taken you on because you were female, and you used to have to pay for the privilege of being trained. So I've always worked. I'm company secretary for a local retail electrical firm. I've done that since 1976. I'm secretary of the local agricultural show. I've done that since 1988. The show's been going since 1849, and I was the first female secretary that they'd ever had.
Wow. So quite the career then.
Yes.
Similar. So I've been in public sector all of my career. I've been employed now for 24 years. So, and I think things have changed significantly as well during that time for me. So have you noticed any change in the perception of women in farming over the years?
Oh, I think it's a massive movement. I think they're a lot more proactive. They're visible. Yeah. I think previously they weren't visible. My grandparents, my grandmother and my mother. My mother was an amazing person, and they did all the work probably more than I do on the farm, but they never appeared on the bank statements. They never appeared as business partners. They were never seen as part of the structure of farming, if that makes sense.
Yeah, interesting. So not necessarily recognised for the work, perhaps as much as now. Would you say that's better now?
I think so. When it comes to the auction, there are probably still more males than females, but it's not unusual to see females at the auction selling their own stock or selling stock, and I think that's a big plus because it's recognition, and I think females are more likely to recognise where there's a problem and be prepared to diversify and look for outcomes before males recognise that there's an issue, if that makes sense.
Yeah, interesting.
What I said. Yeah.
In my career, when I first joined in local government, I was at university. I was at uni part-time, working full-time. So I was 20, naive maybe, and I walked into this very male-dominated environment at the local council, very excited on my first day, and I met our senior leader. He was a man that had worked at the council his whole career. He was coming towards the end of his career, and super excited to get stuck in. He said, "Could you go and fetch the toast, please, for all the employees?" And I had to walk up into the local town, came back with the toast and thought, okay. And then he said, "Could you go and sort some files out for me?" And it took me a while to convince people, I think, and to build trust with people, to be allowed to be involved in things. Yeah. I don't think that would be the same now for a 20-year-old woman coming into a public sector environment. I think it'd be, completely different. So it's interesting that very different sectors, but lots of change in the last sort of 20, 30 years in terms of recognition.
Yeah. I think I go back a lot further because you weren't born when I was around, but no, I think it's big, and it's one of the reasons why I've been involved. I think education's big, and lifelong learning is really important, and I think I recognised early on that the opportunities weren't the same for females within the rural community, and they were less likely to go to university. It's not the case now, but it was 60 years ago. And so I was on the board of the local college for 20 odd years. I'm still involved with it, but I was actually on the board in charge of governance. Similar experiences to you. When I went on the board, they begged me to go on because there was only one female on and there was 18 men. And when I actually left, it was 50-50, which I thought was quite an achievement because I was chair of governance then. But no, it's I think it's throughout society, but it has changed greatly.
Yeah. So as a woman in farming then, did you have to overcome any obstacles?
I think one thing that was disappointing, and I think it probably wouldn't happen now, was when my parents retired in 1982, I would have liked to take on the farm, the tenancy of the farm, but it wasn't in those days. I mean, I didn't have a brother, I have two sisters, and they're both in farming. But having said that, there wasn't the opportunity for one of us to take that over. If there'd been a son, it would have been different.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then in terms of your career since you've had your farm, anything in particular that stands out that you felt you've had to overcome?
I think I'm quite strong and single-minded, and I was brought up that way. But I think sometimes it's difficult. It's difficult for people that don't have the commitment that and are prepared to stand up for things. And I think you have to be prepared to stick your head above the pavement for things that you feel are important.
Absolutely.
You'll have found that over the years.
Yeah, I think I was driven. I've been driven my whole career. And I think putting yourself in situations, like you say, perhaps you're having to back yourself more. So I've taken opportunities and then walked into a room and felt that I need to work hard to convince people that it's right for me to be there. But I have to say, certainly in the last sort of 10 years of my career, I've not felt disadvantaged at all for being a woman in leadership. And there are more and more women in senior leadership roles. If you look across our directorate, that's absolutely true of the Rural Payments Agency. But I think certainly at the start, I felt I had to work a little bit harder for recognition. But now it's much more evenly balanced.
Yeah, I think it's a big difference in the last 20 years. I think since about 2002, the permanent secretary of DEFRA has been a female, which is good. So, it was unheard of at one time. Same with the Minette Betters is the president of the NFU. She's done that for 10 years. So it's the first time they've had a female. So things have definitely changed greatly.
Yeah, it's interesting because I heard Minette speak last week. It was one of her leaving speeches, actually, at the conference. And she said, I heard far too many headlines read far too many headlines about the fact that I was a female president of the NFU. Yes. And she said, actually, that shouldn't have been the headline. It should have been, I was a tenant farmer as the president of the NFU. Yes. So interesting. I wonder if it would be different now, 10 years on.
Yeah.
So thinking about people like Minette, and you've just mentioned our permanent secretary, how do you think women are influencing the future of farming?
I think a lot more people from the rural community related to farming are going into roles that do influence farming. I think they're going into being land agents. They're going into being advisors for the agricultural feed merchants and things like that. So they're not just actually taking on roles within the farm where if the family farm's there, and the son isn't interested, the daughter's taking it on. I know my cousin's daughter's doing a really good job at one of the farms. She's developed it into cheese because her brother wasn't interested. She's making cheese. She's got a wedding venue, and that's because her brother wasn't interested. But my cousin was quite happy for her to take on that role, and it's worked really well. So that there is a perception that, you know, there's a recognition that women can do things, and I think one of the big things is as well, it isn't as manually, you know, there are contractors now, there are tractors, so, you know, the perception was that, you know, a small female couldn't do the role, whereas now that isn't the case.
So with innovation as well, then innovation, technology, things being very different on the farm, that doesn't make such a difference now in terms of the manual labour.
But as I said, I always remember I would be about 6 or 7 at the time. My father milked cattle for 30 odd years and he never missed a milking. I mean, we didn't, you know, they couldn't afford, or there wasn't relief milkers like there are today. And the cow kicked him and he broke his ankle. He went down to the local hospital, got his ankle set in a plaster and came back and finished milking. That wouldn't happen now.
No. I tell you what I found interesting. So I don't have a farming background, and in the last year I've been to an awful lot of shows, auction marts, various events, and I've met a lot of women in senior leadership roles within supporting networks for farmers. So things like groups helping with mental well-being, people helping with poverty, charities. So it feels that women are also playing a role in the I suppose we'd call them enabling functions here at the Rural Payments Agency, but setting up things to support those farming and rural communities. Is that something you've noticed in your local area?
I've noticed it nationally. I mean, I was the contact for the RPA with the rural farm support networks.
Yes.
And I worked with them for 10, 12 years. Probably longer. And I mean, there was people that really amazed me. People like Susie Wilkins, who's the MBE, Karen Ellis, people like Brenda Sturrock, who actually ran Shropshire Rural Support for over 20 years. She's well into her 80s. And I mean, Susie was county organiser for Somerset, and she was the founding. They started FCN. She was one of the first 6 to start FCN, and she's responsible for promoting the idea of having nurses going into the auctions, which supports not just farmers but all the rural community.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
You know, they're very influential in that respect, and I admire them enormously. And it's all add-on. They already have roles within the farming community, but they take on additional responsibilities.
Yeah, so some strong female role models you've just mentioned there. Now, I know that you won't necessarily like me highlighting this. You've just mentioned MBE, but Norma Boyes, you are also Norma Boyes MBE. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that, your achievements?
Well, I must confess, even though I came to DEFRA late in life, I've had an awful lot of opportunities. I did the help desk the last time for the ministers, the last time we were president of the EU. I've done a version of The Apprentice when the Civil Service Live did a version of The Apprentice. I did that. Yeah. I've done an awful lot of work to promote and build relationships between the RPA and the said support organisations, which I think is very important. Karen Ellis is our class as a friend. She had the rural stress helpline for the Royal Agricultural Show Society for many years. She now does work for FCN. So I've had lots of work there. I've been show secretary for 40 odd years, nearly 40 years. So I support the rural community. I've been involved with the young farmers since I joined in 1963. I really am old, but I'm still an advisor. I mean, and I'm auditor, and that's why the club that I'm auditor for has got quite a lot of money. I was president in 1997 of the Northern District Young Farmers, I mean, I'm very proud of the young farmers. I think it's a great way of getting young people into agriculture and getting them into roles in the community. Since COVID, which is really interesting, there's now the actual numbers of young farmers has doubled across the country. We've now got 23,000, I think, members of young farmers, 5,000 in Wales, 3.5 in Scotland, and people that are involved with young farmers tend to carry on to be the local NFU presidents and take on roles like that, and vice chairman in the and chairman of the rural communities. So it's, I think, I'm a big believer in the organisation. Let's put it that way.
Yes, yeah. Is there anything more you think we could be doing to encourage young women? You talked about young farmers then, but young women to pursue careers in agriculture.
I think really what it is that within the young farmers, I mean, many years ago, when I was in young farmers, I'll be honest with you, I took over as secretary, but I wasn't expected to be chairman. A bit like you, the toast, yes.
Yeah.
Whereas now, because I think there's more commitment from young women often. There's more. Many of the roles within the young farmers across the country are women, and it's young women, and I think that encourages them to take on more responsibility and have more influence in society, which I think if you build up people's confidence and abilities, then the role up comes automatically.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've had some great mentors through my career who have helped me, given me opportunities, helped me grow and develop as a leader. I've had some fantastic roles where I hopefully have made a difference in communities. I've worked in welfare and now supporting rural communities. So I think having those role models, those mentors to support you and guide you is really important. I'm sure you have provided support and advice over the years to many men and women who've gone off to take on careers. So it's been absolutely fascinating to talk to you this morning, Norma. Thank you so much for your time on what must have been an incredibly busy weekend of lambing. I'm sure all of the people listening today will have learned something new about you and about women in farming. So thank you for your time.